the impacts of oil and gas development in the Arctic National Wildlife would be very devastating for our people, for the Gwich'in people from Alaska, North Yukon, and the NWT. And it would definitely affect our way of life, because the Porcupine Caribou Herd is the main source of food for the Gwich'in people.
We have already lost almost every First Nations culture on Earth, but there are still two left that are largely undisturbed: the Gwich'in and the Inupiat. The Gwich'in are Caribou people, living off the Porcupine Caribou Herd that calves every June on the coastal plain of the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. The herd migrates from the coastal plain over the Brooks Mountain Range and across the Porcupine River that gives them their name to their winter range, where they feed 17 Gwich'in villages, spread across Alaska and Canada. The Inupiat are part of the Inuit culture that lives throughout the Arctic Ocean coastal region, living off the bowhead whale, seal, walrus, and fish of the Arctic Ocean, as well as caribou from inland areas. While most of the focus on the need to protect the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge has centered on the amazing wildlife there and the environmental concerns, this is also very much a Native American and human rights issue, as the Gwich'in and Inupiat peoples depend upon the animals that are supported by the Arctic Refuge. But Congress is poised to open up this amazing wildlife refuge to massive industrial oil and gas development that would devastate this wild place forever and permanently destroy the cultures of the Gwich'in and Inupiat peoples.
They're planning to develop for oil and gas right in the core calving grounds of the Porcupine Caribou Herd. And, that's a very sensitive place to try to plan that kind of activity.
My name is Darius Elias. My Gwich'in name is Divida Chinatat, which means sheep standing on a high rock mountain. I was born and raised in Old Crow. I lived in Crow Flats since I was born till I was about 12 years old, until I had to go to school. I'm a senior park warden for Arctic National Park of Canada. If there's ever drilling in the calving grounds of the Porcupine Caribou Herd, I am convinced that it's going to be a slow and painful genocide of our culture. We just simply will not exist without the caribou. It's that simple. If there's no caribou, there will be no Gwich'in.
Old Crow is situated on the Porcupine River, far above the Arctic Circle. Like all Gwich'in villages, it is located along the route of the Porcupine Caribou Herd that feeds the village. In one of my extended visits to Old Crow, I talked to Chief Joe Linklater.
Well, obviously the food source is extremely important, but also I think it's the relationship, the thousands of year old relationship that the Gwich'in have had with the caribou. It's part of our culture, it's part of our way of life, it's part of our identity, and if anything happens to the caribou, it happens to us. It happens to our culture, and it happens to our identity. So that's really the importance to us of protecting the caribou.
The Gwich'in span from Alaska into Canada and regularly trade back and forth across the border, which in that area is just open wilderness, with no customs or checkpoints.
It's actually pretty funny because the borderline is so arbitrary. They never existed before. I don't think we think of it as being different people. It's very, very arbitrary to have a borderline kind of cut through land that's been shared for thousands of years.
Canada has already protected its portion of the calving grounds of the herd, while the United States has signed an agreement to protect the Porcupine Caribou Herd. Many lawmakers are working to violate that agreement and allow development on the core calving grounds. Scientists say this development would devastate the entire Porcupine Caribou Herd that the Gwich'in depend upon.